you for that. 0207 224 2000. Now, the main party leaders are visiting Scotland, and the reasons why they're going there as one unit to shout for the No campaign. David Cameron, Ed Miliband have all said that it's all right. Prime Minister's questions can be put on hold tomorrow because it's always on a Wednesday lunchtime at 12. Instead, they're going to fly up tomorrow morning, and of course the concern is that it's neck and neck and it's pretty much too close to call. Well, delighted to say that Jonathan Davis, who's a friend of the programme, in fact we must get him in to review the day soon, but he's an economist, he's a wealth manager, and he has written a blog in the last few weeks or so about the Scottish independence vote and what it may well mean, and he joins us, delighted to say, live on the programme. Evening to you, Jonathan.
Good evening, Simon.
Welcome, and I think you're coming back in a couple of weeks on Thursday for the day of the vote.
I really look forward to that.
Yes, gosh, it's going to be an interesting night. Where we stand now, 9 days away, what do you perceive must happen in the next few days to make it not neck and neck?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Perhaps... something economic might happen, that either the stock market goes down 20% or up 20%, and that puts the heebie-jeebies up people. Sterling plummets 10% overnight, and that puts heebie-jeebies. As you say, it is neck and neck. I think the winners so far are the media, because you've actually got something to talk about, whereas up until a couple of weeks ago, the no vote thought they had it covered, and all the polls were showing convincingly that Scotland was not going to vote for independence. But of course, as you just said, the polls are now clearly showing neck and neck.
Now, there is a debate about what will happen to this part of the country, in England and Wales and Northern Ireland, if Scotland were to go. And we've seen and heard all kinds of Armageddon-style stories of what will happen to the pound, what will happen to employment, what will happen to outside or should we say inward investment. If Scotland were to vote yes, what will happen in this country without Scotland?
Yeah, in the short term, the pound would likely fall on global markets, but I hasten to say an important point. You guys in the media have got one thing totally wrong. You've been saying that the pound has been falling because...
of the uncertainty, isn't it?
Hold on, because the vote has got closer and Scotland may go independent. No, the pound has been falling since the beginning of July, over 2 months ago. Actually, the polls have only been showing for the last literally few days that the yes vote has been rising.
So why has it been falling? Nothing to do with Scotland at all?
It's nothing to do with Scotland. It's actually because from the summer of last year to the summer of this year, the pound rose 10 or 15% on global markets, and nothing goes in a straight line. And actually, by the beginning of July this summer, it was time for a pause, and that's what's happened. However, getting back to the question, if the yes vote comes, then yes, as it happens, yes, the pound will be affected detrimentally in the short term. But isn't it fascinating? You know, you're talking about the three major party leaders trotting up to Scotland to tell everyone to vote no. Isn't it fascinating how for years, and you and I have talked about this on your show, for years they've said we need to have low interest rates to keep the pound down because that helps our poor exporters. Now that the pound has been falling, they're all shouting, oh, this is terrible, the pound's going down. You know, it's double standards.
It's fair weather economics.
Well, I think actually it's fair weather politics as it happens. And isn't that there cannot be a better example or confirmation of, again, something I've said on your show, that actually there is practically no difference between the major parties. all three of them going up there to tell everyone to vote no.
But on this there isn't, because all three major parties, you could argue, represent the United Kingdom. So why would anybody in this part of the country want the union to split up?
Well, actually, there are very good political reasons why we'd want that to happen. I say why people in England, Wales and Northern Ireland might want that to happen. If you are on the right side of politics, that's a capital R rather than a small r,
yes,
then you'd probably want Scotland to leave, because, and still people haven't got this message, but there's some 45 Labour MPs which come from Scotland, which basically gives the Labour Party an entrenched superiority of numbers.
Which
and
they will
gives
lose
them the greater opportunity to
yes.
always win.
Yes. So if
Take away those 45 MPs, then obviously the numbers are that Labour would have a much lower chance of ever winning an election again.
Interesting, so, and it was something that has been referred to. I think it was last night. A few of our callers made similar points, but it's very good to hear it from you, because then we know it's the truth. Although, of course, the callers know too. Just secondly, I mean, one of the other headlines, I wonder if it's also one of those things the media has got wrong, perhaps, is that there is a chance that mortgages will increase in cost if Scotland were to vote yes. Is that likely in your view?
In England, you mean?
In England,
Wales,
yeah.
No, yeah. We see, for that to happen, the pound would have to plummet and stay down sustainably, and the Bank of England probably wouldn't like that, so they'd probably raise interest rates to bring the pound back up. Now, you asked the question, what's going to happen to the pound? In the short term, I say again, yes, I think the pound would be detrimentally affected by the Scottish exit from Westminster. However, the way global markets work, once the news is out there, I think the global markets will view the pound in the bigger picture light of the economy of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, which, after all, is 92% of the economy of the United Kingdom. So, Scotland leaving just takes away 8%. In other words, I think the pound would actually come back up again, and actually, no, I wouldn't agree with those who suggest that mortgage costs may go up because of Scotland exit.
And do you worry about this either way? Because clearly your accent betrays your past, but the location we're speaking to you in now, which is the home counties of England, obviously betrays your presence. Do you care?
Well,
would you worry for Scotland if they voted yes or no?
Well, if I just tell you, up until a few weeks ago, anyone who asked me this question, and I think you even asked me this question a few months ago, my standard answer was, as an economist and wealth manager and as a Scot, I can forcefully say, I don't care what they do, because ultimately there are pros and cons on both sides. If they stay, they'll win and they'll lose, and if they go, they'll win and they'll lose. So ultimately not an issue. But I changed my mind a few weeks ago, and ultimately I decided it has nothing to do with economics or, in a sense, politics. I had a eureka moment. You look around the world at Singapore, Hong Kong, small, fantastically successful countries and economies, and indeed closer to home, Switzerland, where politics, government is actually devolved to what's called the cantons. They're like very large counties. And in Germany, they've got the Länder, which again are regions which have got far more power than the federal state. So it occurred to me, you know what? The closer a government is to the governed, the easier it is for the governed to control the government. Think of Westminster to Scotland. Clearly, Scotland cannot control Westminster. Brussels controls the rest of Europe. We don't control Brussels, Washington, D.C., and America. So my point is, I came down to the view I would like to see Scotland go independent simply because the governed will have more control over the Edinburgh government from that point on. And I think that's a very important societal and democratic point, which actually, unfortunately, has not actually come out in the debate. And I think it's a very important one.
And I'm glad you had a chance to raise it, Jonathan. I'm also very much looking forward to you being in on the programme that night. I think that night I'm away, sadly, but I will try and listen to the programme because it is going to be a major vote and certainly a major programme when we talk about the results of that vote. Whichever way it goes, it will be a change for this country forever, particularly because of the uncertainty thus far. Jonathan, if people want to find more about you, just explain how they can do it online.
Oh, well, you mentioned the blog that I wrote. I write this blog. They could just look for Jonathan Davis. You couldn't make it up. That's the name of my blog.
Wonderful. Thanks very much indeed. And he doesn't make it up, by the way. It's all factually correct. It is all good. And Jonathan Davis is a friend of the programme. Thanks for joining us live on the programme tonight. So we'd love to get some of your reaction on this.